Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Some breaking news out of Nunavut. The city of Iqaluit has shut down its water treatment plant yet again. Water was contaminated last week with fuel for the second time in recent months. Officials initially said that only trace amounts of fuel was causing the water to smell again. But last week, the water was safe to drink, they said. Today, they activated a bypass system, and residents are being advised to boil that water prior to consumption. We'll have more on this developing story for you tomorrow. 5 residential school sites in Manitoba will be searched for graves. This is part of an agreement between the federal government and the Dakota Teepee First Nation. The Residential School Survivors Project will look at former school sites in Portage la Prairie, Sandy Bay, Assiniboia, Brandon, and Fort Alexander. The project will be survivor-led. Church and Hudson Bay Company records will also be used. The federal government will fund over $350,000 over 3 years for this initiative. Dakota Teepee Chief Eric Pache says this project is an important step in the healing journey.
You look at the issues that are there and generational issues that have occurred due to the traumas and other things that have affected livelihoods of the people today and the people before us and people that had attended residential schools, and you know, it's important in terms of how we would look to move forward in the healing journey and the healing pathway with and saying all of that. And you know, I think that in that regard, you know, there's definitely a lot of, you know, outstanding, a lot of work in progress, and definitely a long ways to go.
It was a busy day in Manitoba for Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Marc Miller. On top of that Dakota Teepee announcement, the federal government also announced the creation of a new council to hold the Government of Canada accountable for reconciliation. Minister Miller joins us to discuss. Miller, always a pleasure to have you on. So let's talk about this new committee. How did you come up with the list of names that are on the committee?
You know, it's a process that is done through consultation. I think you'll recognize the list of the transitional committee, because there is some work to do on actual legislation. Is one of very notable Indigenous peoples, and you know, Little Child chief among them. But it's clear that there is a need, and this has been expressed through Indigenous advocacy foremost, to have the federal government accountable. We often talk about the calls to action and ones that are fulfilled, partially fulfilled, on their way, and there is, you know, some heated debate about whether the level of advancement. I think we recognize that things have gone very slowly, but this is a National Council on Reconciliation that will have eminent Indigenous peoples holding us to account and moving us forward on something that we've undertaken as a government to do.
So, of course, people will say, well, how can this council be independent of government if they are funded by the government? You know, are you not still kind of controlling the strings? I guess the other question would be, you know, some people say, oh, just one more government committee that doesn't necessarily come up with actually concrete results. So, you know, how do you assure that that would be any different this time?
Yeah, you know, I hope people that take that approach will be disappointed in the results, but the results will be important to look at. This is if you look at the CVs and the history of the people involved, as well as the mission of what will be the permanent body. It is they will, first and foremost, as a matter of personal integrity, want to hold us to account, but professional systemic mechanisms within the organization, Indigenous led, are ones that will hold the government to account and push forward the calls to action. You know, the government of Canada does fund a number of organizations across the country. It doesn't, by extension, mean that we control them or dictate the pace and policy. And I think that's the important thing to remember, including funding for various organizations that play a very important check function, including the media, on us. And we welcome that, frankly, as bitter and poignant as the criticism can be at times.
Oh, we can get bitter, that is for sure. You know, so this committee is going to focus on calls to action 53 to 56 from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. How come? Why those ones specifically?
Well, I think there's a need. I think there is a need to, you know, it not limited to those, but I think there's a need foremost in any circumstance to show the public that not necessarily spends all its time on Indigenous issues, but is very important into the relationship that we have with Indigenous peoples, that there is progress on who we are and who we believe to be as a country. And that's the independence of this commission, and particularly the role that will play over the next few years will be key. Now, there are important steps, including legislation, that have not been put forward yet. That is the legislative agenda of Parliament, and that's on us and on us to get going. And this, I would caution listeners and viewers that this is a transitional committee, albeit composed of very important people that will want to see progress. But it is a step forward that people have been calling on us to do for a long time, and there has been funding in a prior budget allocated to it. It's just we haven't taken that next step.
Well, thank you for joining us to fill in some of the blanks for us, and we'll certainly be watching what goes on with this new council. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Now to the Yukon. The territory has a failing grade when it comes to education for Indigenous students. It's a problem that's been going on for years, and now a First Nations school board is rolling out there with the goal of helping Indigenous students succeed. Here's Sarah Connors with that story.
Aaron Paul's son Salix is excited to start school at Takini Elementary next fall. But Pauls knows the Yukon education system has some shortcomings, something she's experienced firsthand.
I did struggle. And when I started university, I also struggled, like with my reading and writing and stuff like that.
You think you can get it out, Mom?
That's why the Champagne and Ajax First Nations member is voting in favor of Yukon's new First Nations school board. Takini Elementary is one of 9 schools in the territory voting in the referendum. The schools that vote yes will join the school board for the 2022-23 school year.
I was born and raised in the Yukon and went through the school system here. Like, there's a lot of strengths of our school. There's definitely strengths, but we have a lot of room for improvement so that we can better serve all of our children.
Last summer, an agreement to form a school board was reached by the territorial government and the Chiefs Committee on Education.
The rest of Canadians and Yukoners are going to look at the children in their school systems, and they're going to want the same for their children as well.
The board will be responsible for developing First Nations content for its school's curriculum. That could eventually include more Indigenous language instruction, learning on the land, and elders in the classroom. It will also have greater control over things like hiring staff and managing funding provided by the Department of Education. The board's ultimate goal is to advance reconciliation and help Indigenous students' educational outcomes, something the territory's education system has a bad track record with.
We've really had to address that racism of low expectation right up front.
Melanie Bennett is the executive director for the Yukon First Nations Education Directorate, which is helping set up the board. She says some parents and educators are concerned how the board will change education.
This is something different. They don't know what it'll mean. There are teachers involved in schools that are saying, what's going to happen to my job? This is utilizing the current existing Education Act, and all those people remain employees.
She says ultimately the board will benefit all students.
We're trying to build a more than model. We have the opportunity to have schools that are going to have our children learning in 2 worldviews. That's amazing.
Results of the referendums will be released at the end of the month.
I need help.
Yeah. Pauls is hopeful that her son will be able to learn in a way that is meaningful to their First Nations culture.
I really don't want to see another generation of children, and especially First Nations children, having the school system not meet their needs.
Woo, got it. Now your turn.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
I was invested in seeing him come down that slide again. Saskatoon's White Buffalo Lodge welcomed kids for 2 decades. The safe space operates out of a former downtown grocery store, but a new home is on the horizon, and it's going to be a bright light for this whole neighborhood. The lodge is one step closer to becoming part of the new Princess Alexander Public School. The move comes after a city committee approved a plan to join talks with the Saskatoon Tribal Council. Before the pandemic hit, the lodge had 35,000 kids visit per year, taking part in everything from before and after school programs to cultural programs. According to Saskatoon Tribal Council Chief Marc Arcand, the need is growing.
There's more kids that are coming to our programs. Unfortunately, we had to turn them away because of lack of space. So this is going to eliminate that turning people away and just inviting more people to come to this facility, because after 20 years, it's built a big footprint in our city of Saskatoon, and now it's time to enhance that version to a bigger facility.
We always like to hear from you about this or any other story that we cover. Here's how you can get a hold of us. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Follow APTN News and join the conversation and see all of our latest stories. Well, we need to take a quick break, but we still have lots of news still ahead, so stay with us. Since BC declared a public health emergency due to overdose deaths 6 years ago, the province has been trying to combat a toxic drug supply. But as Tina House tells us, things are only getting worse.
It's been 6 years since the BC government declared a state of emergency because of toxic drugs that has taken the lives of 7,700 British Columbians.
Despite our government investing in addiction treatment and prevention at an unprecedented level, despite this and more, we have lost thousands of lives.
On June 21st, 2019, Glenn Rebick, who lived with his mother in Vancouver, went out to go visit some friends and never returned. His mother, Meredith Dan, called police after Glenn still hadn't returned after 2 days. She filed a police report with the Vancouver Police Department.
The last thing I said to him was, have fun and be safe.
On June 25th, Meredith received news about her son.
We saw that there was a police car outside the apartment, but it had been sitting there for like a half an hour, 45 minutes. And so we, weren't sure what it was for. And sure enough, it was the 2 police officers and victim services who were coming to deliver the next of kin notification. Without any preface, she said to me, well, first of all, Glenn is dead. And I just went down. My knees gave out. I went down. My knees caught me. And then when I regained my composure, I got up and I just yelled at her, you need to work on your delivery.
She later found out that at 2:13 a.m. on June the 22nd, 2019, her son, Glenn Rebick, accidentally overdosed and passed away after accepting a line of what he thought was cocaine, but turned out to be laced with fentanyl.
I miss him. Every single day I wake up, and for a brief second, I think he's sleeping on the couch, and then the reality that he's not here hits me. But for a brief second, I have hope that he's not really gone.
Glenn was an avid skateboarder and was well known and respected in the skate community. His mother says that when he saw him on his board, he was happy, free, and living his best life, doing something that he loved. This memorial video shows him throughout the years as he grew up skateboarding. Glenn Rebick was just 29 years old when he passed away. According to the BC Chief Coroner, 6 people a day are dying in this province due to the toxic drug supply. Making matters worse, they're also discovering more drugs mixed with benzodiazepine, which naloxone, which is normally used to save lives, has no effect. Trey Helton is a former addict, but has now gotten sober. He's the manager of the Overdose Prevention Society in Vancouver's infamous downtown Eastside, and says more needs to be done to help.
There's lots of different options that need to be brought about. Safe supply is one of them. Detox on demand is something that I'd really like to see. If someone says, hey, you know what, I'm feeling done and I'd like to find a way out, they shouldn't have to wait 2 weeks to get into a detox center. They should be fast-tracked. It's just a very small window.
And BC is answering that plea for help. They are the first province in Canada to take a bold new step and have applied for an exemption from Health Canada under 56(1) of the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to remove criminal penalties for people who possess small amounts of illicit drugs for personal use. Former BC Chief Coroner and current Senator Larry Campbell says the first step is removing the stigma for drug users and then wrapping around services to help them.
This is about keeping people alive. That's it. That's the bottom line. I'm proud that our province is leading in this. This is open to any jurisdiction in Canada, and I would invite them to join in on this. And I'm confident that the federal government will respond favorably.
Dennis Desjardins says that he began using drugs 12 years ago. The father of 5 says he lost his family because of his addiction and says he feels like there is no way out of this lifestyle.
I overdosed yesterday. Yeah. And I just did like one dragon. And I dropped, my friends were walking by, they didn't even notice it was that quick and that easy, and I slid down the wall and dropped, right? So it's very toxic and powerful, like you said. I was not expecting that to happen at all. So.
And what happened? Did somebody bring you back with naloxone?
No, they called an ambulance, and the ambulance came in, then they gave me Narcan and stuff, yeah, and they brought me out in emergency at St. Paul's. So. You
just got out of the hospital today?
Yeah.
And you're back down here again?
Yeah.
Will you be doing more drugs again today?
I already used it.
Does it not deter you that you just overdosed yesterday?
No, not at all. I know it should, but it doesn't really right now.
And like so many, Dennis says he feels helpless to control his addiction.
Never to get involved with it, man. It is a horrible trap. Getting addicted to heroin is the most worst thing anybody could do. I wouldn't wish it upon my enemies. So I love my wife and my children, and that was like the majorest loss today. Could have lost is my life.
Meredith Dan says she feels that the painful effects of residential schools and the intergenerational trauma has a lot to do with addictions. BC Chief Coroner Lisa Lapointe says they are open to trying alternatives to save lives.
It is killing people at an alarming rate. So is it going to be a perfect model? I don't think so. But I don't think we need to look for perfect right now.
In 2021, 1,782 people died of toxic overdoses. Over 71% of those were aged 30 to 59 years old, and 79% of those were men. For Meredith Dan, she continues to struggle daily with the loss of her son, including how she was told about his death. She filed an official complaint about how the Vancouver police officer delivered the death notification of her son, and the final investigation report said the officer did nothing wrong.
Coming into my home, she could have said, Miss Dan, you might want to sit down. We're here, we've got some bad news. You know, like had some compassion or understanding that she was ruining my life in that moment. But for her to say, first of all, Glenn is dead, was wrong.
And just as we were finishing this interview, a special guest appeared.
Oh my God. There's my boy.
And back on the streets, Dennis Desjardins says everything has changed since fentanyl and carfentanil entered the scene.
It's different. It's not even the same game. It's a different game altogether.
How many friends have you lost down here?
Too many to count.
The federal government has not yet approved BC's request for that exemption. The Vancouver Police did not respond to our request for an interview. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Time for another break, but we still have lots of news for you, so stay with us. Time now for our photo of the day. Laura Pegamagabo shares with us the snow and frost-covered trees along the shadow, of the Georgian Bay from the traditional territory of the Wasauksing First Nation. That's in Ontario. Please send us another picture when things clear up. It looks like you've got a beautiful place there. Keep those photos coming. You can send them to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Let's take a look now at tomorrow's weather. Off to the east coast, we've got 6 and snow for St. John's, -14 and snow for Fredericton. Happy Valley Goose Bay, -20, snow expected there, -26 and sunny in Kuujjuaq. Chibougamau, -26 and sunshine, -12 and sunny for Montreal. Ottawa, -15 and sunny skies, snow, -15 for Sault Ste. Marie. So Lookout, -21 and sunny, same with Timmins and Kapuskasing and Sudbury. -16 for Thompson, God's Lake, Norway House. Sunshine down south there too. Barons River, -15. Brandon, -17. -10 for Yorkton and sunny skies, -5 for Saskatoon, mostly cloudy. Snow for Buffalo Narrows, -5. Snow for Stony Rapids, -17. Lots of snow up in northern Alberta, -12 for High Level, -4 for Fort McMurray. Cloud and 3 degrees there for Edmonton, 5 and sunny for Lethbridge. 1 and snow for Kamloops, Quesnel, 4, snow expected there. Prince Rupert, rain and 7 degrees. Fort Nelson, snow, -22. Dawson City, -10 and snow. Old Crow, clear skies, -25. Wrigley, you get -25 too, but you're getting snow. Same with Uwati. Sunshine and -29 for Fort McPherson. Colville Lake, snow, -26. Baker Lake, -27 and sunny. Same with Nuyot. Tallyoak, -28 and snow. Same with you, Joe Haven. A Saskatoon snow sculptor has done it again, creating a creature that would make Game of Thrones fans proud. Mel Thompson upped the ante a bit by adding a smoke machine for a fire-breathing effect. Thompson has created similar sculptures in the past to give people something to smile about during our very long, cold winter. Well, we put the spotlight on books and visual arts on In Focus earlier today. Raven Reads is a company that curates boxes of books and other goodies, all by Indigenous creators, and ships them across the country. The subscription-based service makes it easy to discover new writers. Founder Nicole McLaren shared some of her top picks, including this chapter book for grade school kids.
The first one I want to tell you about is called Jojo McCoon's The Used to Be Best Friend by Dawn Quigley. I was very excited about this book because there's not a lot of chapter books for this age range by Indigenous authors. So this book is super cute, a great introduction to chapter books, easy to read, about a feisty 7-year-old Ojibwe and Métis girl in grade 1, navigating the complexities of friendships in grade school.
You can find that entire In Focus episode on our website, aptnnews.ca. Well, that is a wrap for your midweek news. Thank you so much for joining us. We always love to see you. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. See you back here tomorrow.